All right. Well, hey, Kathy, how are you?
I'm awesome, Lynn. How are you?
Good. I am super excited to have you here. So for everybody listening, Kathy and I have been in the same mastermind group for over a year. We are a bunch of women who are launching our side hustles into online programs and making our side hustles our daily bread. And we had our session. We meet every Tuesday, and this morning we had a great conversation around mindset and playing the mindset game and what sort of prevents you from moving forward and what causes procrastination. And you got on this role, and it was so awesome that I thought, okay, Kathy, do you want to be on my podcast this afternoon? And you're like, oh, okay, sure. So Kathy, tell us a little bit about you. You're a professional golfer. Your programs are all about coaching people through the game, but it really does come down to mindset. So I'm going to hand it over to you. Give us a little bit of background on who you are and what you do.
Okay, yeah. So I'm a golf pro. I'm a top 50 teacher, but I help people with their mindset so that they can perform to their potential, so that they can get out of their own way, which is what we do in business too. We get in our own way, and it's not anything too dissimilar. I always make the claim we have one brain. A lot of times golfers think that they have to have a special brain. I think entrepreneurs feel like we have to have a special brain. And
So
it's really
true.
what you do, the different areas it's so good to tap into that you do well off of, the area that you're struggling, whether it's golf or in your business, and just notice the way that you go through some of the processes. And it is about how you think and you believe in what you're capable of doing. And it's so easy. What I was talking about a little bit this morning was it's so easy to get into the habit of passive action versus massive action, which is a lot of what we talk about in the coaching business. And passive action for me and for a lot of entrepreneurs looks like consuming material, buying another course, reading another book, thinking, just pondering what you're going to do, how you're going to put things together. And that's passive action. While there is value in that and it's helpful, it's so important to realize that it can become very indulgent. We can get stuck there. And we want to make sure that we're taking action within our business that is moving us further forward. And I started talking about in the group about taking that step of being courageous, because it's so easy for us to get settled in on where we feel very comfortable, where we feel capable. But for us to grow, we have to move into new areas that cause us a lot of discomfort.
Oh my God, that is so good. I love that passive action versus massive action. You're right. I think we get caught into this like waiting for perfection, waiting for everything to be perfect. I have to absolutely plan everything out, and then I get started. And part of what I teach, like within my Encore Life Academy, is let's just start throwing ideas against the board, see what sticks, and then incubating ways for you to just get started. Not to like fully bake something and then serve it, but just get started so that you can test it. Because often we get down this path and, ooh, it's not what I really wanted. So could you imagine having spent all this time and effort on something and then only to come to that realization that it's not what you wanted? So I love it. So this morning we were talking about courage. So I really want you to share that part with the audience today.
Yeah, so the concept is through Dan Sullivan, and it's called the 4 C's. And the concept is that your first C is commitment. You have to fully decide and be 100% in before on any action that you take. This is the way that we create things in our business. This is the way that we create growth. And once we have a commitment, then it takes courage. And this is an area where we can spend a lot of time. Sometimes we never let ourselves get committed. So we're partially committed. And when we're partially committed, let's say we're 50% or 75% committed to either our idea or what we want to do in our business or the growth that we want to have or our next step, what happens is then it takes so much energy of courage. We're in courage or that state of courage much longer because we're not fully committed. The analogy is like when you're casting off from a dock in a boat, you got to jump in the boat and untie it and set sail versus having one foot on the dock and one foot in the boat. And therefore, the courage part, once we have the commitment, the courage part is the uncomfortable part. That's our fears. That's the part that we really don't want to step into. But it can be very short-lived once we're 100% committed. And that's the biggest thing that I have found when we get into passive energy or passive action and we're procrastinating is we're not fully committed to what we're doing. We're not 100% in. And so we taking all this procrastination, all these steps to avoid what we have to do from being courageous and going into that, fighting our fears.
Yeah, no, for sure. I love that. So all in from a
Yeah.
commitment standpoint. And then when you can finally commit to something, then you mentioned finding the courage to actually do it. So tell us a little bit more about what that concept really means and how you used that concept before.
Yeah. So the 4 C's, those are two of the C's. So you have a commitment, that commitment, now you have to draw on your courage to go and take the steps and go forward. And then once you go there, you create capability, you create new skills, you create different ways of doing things. You open up your mind to being creative about all the possibilities that are in front of you because it's new. And then from capability, then you create confidence. And that confidence gives you more builds on itself so that you can take more commitments down the road. And the thing is, what happens is we can become very comfortable and complacent with staying in what we're capable of doing and what we feel confident in. And when you do that, you're never going to grow. You're never going to move to that next level. We have to keep evolving. And that means that we're going to have to find something to commit to. And we're going to have to drum up the courage, knowing that we're willing to be uncomfortable to go through the next steps of growing and creating that confidence. One of the ways that would look for you and I is starting a podcast. I use that example. I was committed to starting a podcast, as were you, and that took courage, right? There were a lot of fears of not knowing what to do, fearing that we're going to fail, that our message is going to fall flat, that no one's going to listen, all those things. We had to drum up the courage to go through and learn the skills. That's the capability of how to do a podcast. Right. If at any point we were not clear or 100% committed on the podcast and that first step, we would have dragged this out for so long. We would have had to stick in courage for so much longer. So us being committed to the podcast made all the other steps much easier. I mean, you're still uncomfortable. And then you learn how to do a podcast and then you feel very confident, right? You build the confidence and that you know how to do things, you know how to do hard things. You're like, all right, let me bring on the next thing for me to do. Right.
Yeah.
Versus the opposite of that would be an example of, let's say, launching a product and you weren't 100% sure or committed that this was the way to go or that you loved your product or that was the perfect thing. Then you're going to have to drum up and tap into courage over and over and over again. You might get there, but it's going to be so much harder because you're not fully committed to what you want to do.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I just think about like all of the listeners out there, the people who could potentially be thinking about leaving their job that they've been in for the past 30 years. Like, oh my God, the courage that just takes. But first, like committing to do it, then the courage. And that courage is, like you said, what do you need to do to make sure that you can stay committed, that ultimately, gives you capabilities. So you might want to learn some new skills and things like that, or figure out what will you do before you quit your job. And then the confidence. And I think even like when you use the reference of the podcast, I mean, I have no idea. I'm literally using the worst equipment ever. I know you've got this beautiful mic and you sound so wonderful. But I mean, I just like at this point, I've committed to doing the podcast. I'm not going after A+ game anymore. I'm as a Virgo, I am a self-proclaimed perfectionist and I've always strived for A+. But now I figure I'm putting stuff out there that is raw, authentic, it's original, and it's just, I'm started it. I'm sure I will get better at it. I'm sure I will find a podcast studio where I can have a better mic or whatnot. But right now, the idea is to deliver something of value, and that is ultimately what I'm committed to. And so it was just such a good call this morning because you really sort of gave validation that just getting started on something and doing it will then lead to improvement along the way. How do you bring this concept into your coaching business? Tell us a little bit about your coaching business for golfers.
Yeah. So I coach high performers who just really want to get out of their own way. And so like a lot of my clients some of them are doctors and lawyers and, CEOs and bankers. So I have them they're all really just high achievers and they're not able to take this talent that they have out onto the golf course. And we do that too in our business, right?
Wow.
We get in our own way. So
So
it's all the
good.
same thing. It's just all about how to manage your thoughts and your emotions, start believing in new things, start believing what's possible for yourself, not listening to the crappy thoughts in the back of your brain that are telling you that you're not going to make it or that you're not going to succeed, and getting past those. And so having a coach is one of the ways of doing that, is having someone in your corner that is going to help you listen to all your BS thoughts and get yourself around it and help you keep taking action and moving forward. So with golfers, what I do is I allow them to get out of their own way so that they can take all their skill out onto the golf course and play to their potential and also enjoy the game a lot more, so we're not beating the heck out of themselves. Does that seem like a totally benign kind of thing? Is like, golf doesn't matter? Yeah. The thing is it's not so much about people playing golf, it's about how they treat themselves, and beat themselves up. And that is definitely very real for people and palpable. So that's how I use my coaching to help people in
It's
golf.
so true. We run into imposter syndrome. We run into that gremlin in our head that always is telling us you're not good enough. No, stay in bed just for an extra hour. Just hit snooze. And it's really up to you. I'm seeing a common theme in all of my podcast guests around, just getting out of your own way, beating up that gremlin, figuring out ways to go against that gremlin when that gremlin is telling you no. What is your morning routine? So I know that you are, a woman that has been, who started this online business, a couple of years now.
Mhm.
How do you stay motivated every day? Because not every day is rosy, right? And,
Yeah.
you're setting revenue goals. It's a constant hustle. So tell us the three things that you do to keep yourself going.
So every morning I do have a routine in the morning. And one of the things that I do is I go back and I look at my goals. I have personal goals and I have business goals, and I remind my brain of what I want to do. So sometimes I write them down. It's very helpful to write them down. It's very helpful to say them out loud. I have them already written down, so I look at them. But I refresh that every single day by looking at it so that I get recharged on why I want to create and do the things that I want to do. So it's a good reminder. And then I also set out with an intention for the day of just 3 things that I want to do that would be a win for the day, so that I can keep encouraging myself along the way. At the end of the day, I just go back through and define what my 3 wins are. And so I write those down so I can see them. And, I've had a tendency, and I think we can do this as entrepreneurs, is trying to do a lot or more and then not giving myself credit for anything. So I really just did simplify it down to 3 things, and it makes a big impact on how you perceive all the effort that you're doing and staying motivated and feeling motivated as you're going forward.
That's awesome. Kathy, before I let you go, what is the thing that you would tell the audience? The audience is, 50 plussers who are seriously in a major moment of their life where, they've got kids that have probably moved on to go out for college, go to college. They potentially are getting divorced. They may have even been packaged out of their jobs. Or just simply just want change. What advice would you give them at 50 when they're already probably thinking it's too late, I don't have the confidence, I can't start all over? What would you say?
Well, that's me, right? You just defined me, because I'm in my mid 50s and I started over. I started a whole new career. I was a teaching pro. Now I'm a coach, and I just choose to believe that I can do anything I put my mind to, and that it's not over, and that I want to really define what makes me happy and what I want, and then figure out how to go get it. And that's it. It's not, there is no resting, there is no done, right? It's all about how you feel about yourself and what you think is possible. And I just choose to believe that anything's possible.
I love it. Kathy, you know what? I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people find you if they're looking for
They can
you?
find me at kathyhartwood.com, or on Instagram, it's Kathy Hartwood.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I love you. I will see you next Tuesday. You've been a real pleasure. Thank you for showing up today, bringing your energy and all your super inspirational words.
Thank you so much, Lynette. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks,
All right.
Kathy.